So we will have this on our YouTube page as well. And I think Jennifer, we're going to send it to you for the premise too. So I'm going to give everybody on Facebook a few minutes to find us. So I'm going to do some filling of some airtime here just until we can get a couple people watching and seeing what's going on. But anyways, I'm Julie Slavinsky. I'm the director of events at Warwick's. And today we are so excited. There's so much going on today. If you are a book enthusiast, like like all of us on the screen,
Right.
today is filled with things for book lovers all around. There is this event that we're having right now with Christopher. We are so excited that you are our Independent Bookstore Day special guest for Warwick. So thank you for being here for that. We are really excited. San Diego local, but also with that, Christopher and Jennifer are participants in the San Diego Festival of Books, and that's happening today as well. And their panel discussions can be found at the San Diego Festival of Books website. And then the Independent Bookstore Day has a lot of programming that's going on today too. They've got Amor Tolles will be talking at 1 o'clock our time. Lauren Groff with Emma Straub will be talking with Tahari Jones at 4 o'clock our time. So there's so much going on today. So go to our website, warwicks.com, look on the day on today's calendar section, and we've got the links to all of that. So you can easily find what's happening today on Independent Bookstore Day and San Diego Festival of Books and the book crawl. You get a pin if you spend money with us. So just for people who are maybe joining us that aren't familiar with Warwick's, we are located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. We've actually been open for business since the end of May. So we have been doing masks, social distancing, but, and we recognize that we're in the middle of a financial crisis and a pandemic. But like I always like to say, if you're going to buy a book, buy it from an independent bookstore. We can get you books just as easily as anybody else. So online, call us, we'll ship it, you can pick it up, we'll drive it to your house if you live in La Jolla. So, so we will get you that book. So we got some watchers, so I'm going to start the programming here. Just to let you know, Jennifer and Chris are going to be talking for about 35-ish, 40 minutes. I'll be monitoring the comments on Facebook, so if you have any questions, put them in there. I'll bring those in. This will reside on Facebook, so if you join us late, you can always go back and look and see what's going on and share it with your friends too. So without further ado, here we go. Jeniffer Thompson is a personal branding expert, digital marketing strategist, and host of the Premise podcast. She is an author and speaker who delivers strategy-rich content and actionable tools that educate and empower authors. She and her husband, Chad, co-founded Monkey See Media in 2004 and have been creating award-winning book cover designs and author websites ever since. Jennifer is a co-founder of the San Diego Writers Festival. She serves on the board of the San Diego Memoir Writers Association and is currently writing her own coming-of-age memoir. So with that, Jennifer, Christopher, have a great conversation.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce our wonderful author today, Christopher Reich. He is the New York Times bestselling author of The Take, Numbered Account, Rules of Deception, Rules of Vengeance, Rules of Betrayal, and many other thrillers. His novel, The Patriots Club, won the International Thriller Writers Award for Best Novel in 2006. He lives in Encinitas, local San Diegan. And today we are here to discuss Christopher Reich's latest novel, The Palace, which is the third in the Simon Risk series. Fantastic book. Christopher, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about this incredible book.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and that's a tough introduction to live up to.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, let me say this book is so good. It's so fun. It's a kind of a dense book. I mean, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of characters. I really enjoyed it. I want to start with our main hero, Simon Risk, if we can. Simon Risk is flawed. He's kind of a bad boy with a good heart. He makes mistakes. He's kind of messy in a way. So tell us, how did you come to develop this character?
Yeah, it's funny. I always write the kind of books that I love to read. And just as a preface, for many years, I've been writing these kind of globe-trotting, loyalty blurring, bomb ticking, just absolutely edge of your seat, no room for humor in novels. No one cracks a smile, just pedal to the metal, full speed. And I thought, I've done that so much, and frankly, the world was kind of overtaking me with the events being even more fantastical than in the novels.
Right.
And so I said, I want to kind of change pace. And so I was looking for a new series to start. And I really it took me a year or so to come up with this character, what I wanted to write. And I was just hearkening back to the things I loved watching. Some of the movies in the 60s and 70s, To Catch a Thief, or the TV show It Takes the Thief, kind of the mixed heroes, also like The Saint, something that has a lot of bad in them, is always fighting down the bad.
The good and evil theme,
he has the two angels on their shoulders, right? And of course, Simon, who's an American, but he grew up in Europe, he grew up in London. He had some family tragedies, then was sent to live in the south of France, where he got immediately kind of drawn into what the French call le milieu, which is the Marseille mafia, and found himself to be quite adept at those skills.
He was pretty good at being that,
And not only that, he was good. He could steal a car faster than anybody else. He was a mastermind of a lot of armored car robberies. So he really liked that adrenaline rush he got from firing a machine gun, from breaking the law, until, of course, he's caught. And then he kind of undergoes a miraculous kind of change of heart while in prison. So the Simon that we are meeting is the guy that's on the other side of these difficult times, who still has a lot of that inside of him. He's tough as nails, but he has kind of polished off the rough edges.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It was sort of like the rebirth, the new Simon, who still has that underlying, you always get this sense of grit, right? So he's such a good guy. He's fun to follow along. Another thing I want to say, reading, The Palace is like taking a world tour, which I had so much fun. Simon is multicultural. He's very layered and worldly. And I kept wondering when I was reading this book, how much of your life and your world's travels come into play in The Palace. Because I really felt like I was transported, like Singapore, for example. I want to go to Singapore now because of this book. So
that's a good choice. Actually, I wrote this book when I started setting out to write it. I wanted to live in the locations where the book was taking place.
Really?
And my children are grown up now. Noelle is 22, Katja is 20. I have the liberty and the freedom to be able to go to these places. So I packed up in January of 2019 and said, I'm heading off to Bangkok for 3 months in the Far East. And so that's where I wrote that first really half of the book. In Bangkok, I spent a week on an island that Robinson Crusoe, would have found crowded. I mean, there was nobody there, and off the coast of Malaysia. And then I think really a highlight was, as you said, Singapore, which is, I really call it the first city of the 21st century. It is just an architectural marvel, clean, modern. The people are extremely well educated, forthcoming, very polite. Yes, I mean, not to get really political, but I say, that's the kind of cities that America could be having if we didn't just spend $16 trillion on a lot of wars, because you just see the money is everywhere. And it's just beautiful. It's like, wow, this is the way a metropolis can look at this time, in this day and age.
Yeah, it's about choices, isn't it? It's funny you say that, because London Lee, one of my favorite characters in the book, she, is from Singapore, and she's clearly proud of her city. And, she is convinced that, the people at the top are making good choices because this is Singapore, and she finds that maybe not so true. We won't tell our watchers anything yet, but I loved how, her love of the city came through. The fact that you went and lived in these places makes so much sense to me, because I was like, he must have lived here. I feel like I'm here. It's so authentic. So that's pretty awesome. I loved taking that travel. Also, The Palace stands alone. I mean, this is the third book in the Simon Risk series. But when I first started reading, I thought, is this a series? Really? You know, I thought maybe it was the first, because you set it up in such a way that even if I know nothing about Simon, you know, I get to know him pretty intimately, pretty quickly. And I was wondering to myself, and I wanted to ask you, is it harder to write a series because you've got to give us enough background, but not so much that you bore people who've read books 1 and 2?
Right, right. Well, that is the secret of good series, is being able to have each book be independent and in the story a completely standalone, but
Yeah.
being able to introduce the characters, harken back to things that may have happened in the past, which will please your loyal readers, but won't confuse the readers, the new readers. And actually, I love this exercise, doing it, because it keeps you grounded and focused on how to tell a really tight, linear narrative. You know, you want people to learn the same things about Simon kind of in all the books, but you want to say it differently. So that keeps people interested, and they learn a little bit extra each time. And that's the beauty of a series, is each time a reader gets it, they're more invested in the characters. They want to learn not only what is this heist about, or, you know, what's this conspiracy, but what's happened in Simon's life, what's happened with Lucy Brown, what's happened with Harry Mason, with D'Artagnan Moore, all the real, the main family of the story. And I think that's the challenge, because you're not just writing a conspiracy, you have to keep this personal angle going too. It's like, how are these people's lives evolving? And that's what makes writing such a joy, is kind of losing yourself or immersing yourself in your imagination, creating these others' lives that you can't live yourself.
But it does feel like you pull a lot from your personal life. I mean, because it just feels so authentic. Like, I felt like I was in these cities, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, how many languages does Christopher speak? You know, I can't help but think that, you know, so much of you came into the story, and maybe even to Simon. Would you say
No,
that?
I do use that a lot. I'm very international. I grew up, my father was a Swiss immigrant to America. He came in 1956, and he was in the travel business. So growing up, we were sent, and we traveled all over the world. And it seemed like every summer I would be put in a different location, usually somewhere in Europe, at a school to learn French or German, and be left there. So at a young age, I learned how to kind of quickly adapt, to immerse myself in different cultures, to like it, whether I really liked it or not, you know, just to survive. I think that's a skill that everyone should have. I think, you know, being bilingual or trilingual just is so important. It opens up your vistas. It allows you to see and appreciate other countries' philosophy, how they live. And I think, especially in this day and age, especially in the United States, that is more critical than ever, where we seem to enjoy disparaging different cultures as if they're not the equal of ours. And I think in my books, I try to show that, look at these people living interesting lives, and different lives, but equally valuable. So I definitely try to put in the detail in there, just because it's close to my heart.
Yeah, well, you can tell. It's nicely done too. I mean, and as a reader, I really appreciated it. You know, there is a little bit of a political underlying message. It's not overt. You know, you don't really use politics, I don't think, in your book, and yet a little bit slips through. Maybe you can't help it when we're talking about international crime and, you know, so much that's happening. But when you write these books, do you intend to have just a small political message, just a little one?
Well, I mean, I value my own beliefs, and I think they're hard won and well researched, and, you know, the product of 58 years of living all around the world, and listening to what other people have to say, which I think is a critical element. So in the palace, there is the conspiracy, definitely has a political angle. It has to do with open borders in Europe, with the fear that too many people are coming into too many countries, some of which is not entirely invalid. I mean, you know, I'm not for building a wall, but I'm definitely for borders. You know, you can't have a country if you don't have borders. That's true, like it or not. In Europe, they have a very real problem with the massive immigration coming from Africa, from the Middle East. And, you know, Europe's a much smaller, not only population, but smaller area. I mean, the whole country of France can fit into California, right? And so, you know, you start looking at this. But, you know, basically, I'm telling an exciting story. It's not a political diatribe. I'm not standing on some soapbox banging away, you know, at the corner of Hyde Park speaking. These are exciting stories, edge of your seat, but with a little humor, with a little fun. to spice things up. Because I think, oftentimes for us, in the midst of our greatest crisis, we're able to kind of smile and say, how in the world did I get here? And how am I going to get out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there was one point in the book, I forget what page it was on, but we're talking about like one of the baddest guys in the book, and they're having this conversation about, immigrations, and they're flooding into our country, and he referred to them as cockroaches, and one of the other men reaches over and touches his hand and says, remember, they're human beings too.
Right.
And
right.
I really appreciated that like little subtle, that message, of kindness. And I get that from Simon too. Like he has, even though he's got this underlying bad boy, he's an adventurer, really, I think at his core is this kind individual who really believes in, helping others. And that came across,
He is kind. I mean, that's the whole, what's the word? I'm not sure if dichotomy is a word, but the whole thing he's fighting against
totally.
is he knows inside he's good, and yet, boy, sometimes it just feels so good to be bad, to knock heads, to hurt somebody.
Right.
But
yeah. And he gets angry too, right?
His moral compass is basically aligned to true north, in the end.
Absolutely. Which is why he's such the perfect character. I know everyone probably asks, is this, going to be a TV series or a movie? And I hope it will be, because I really want to see Simon on the big screen.
It is. It's about to go, by the way.
It is.
It's about to go. We have the script. We have the showrunner. We have a very fantastic a TV series for streaming. We don't know how many episodes, between 8 and 12. But we have a fantastic showrunner. We're going to make a big announcement soon. So I'm
congratulations.
But
okay.
The star, I love how they always put British stars playing Americans, right?
Yeah, right?
A 31-year-old Brit. I never write with a person in mind. I never write like a movie star in mind for describing characters. And yet, when this person was cast and he agreed to come on and play, and really devote the next, hopefully 5 to 7 years of his life, half a year doing this, I go, God, this guy, he not only looks exactly like I picture Simon, when he was 31, 32, but he has that attitude, and he could be suave as Cary Grant, and he could be tough as like a Charles Bronson or something. It's really great. Right now we're at the stage where we're about to go find the director for it. We're going to get a big motion picture director. So very exciting for me. It's very gratifying. I've had a lot of my books optioned. Tom Cruise had too. We were always so close, and now this is going to happen. So very happy. Thank you for that.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited to see it. Absolutely. I mean, you write with a lot of cinematic feeling. It felt very much like an action adventure playing out on the big screen. So that's going to be awesome. One of the other things I wanted to mention is the omniscient voice has a snarky personality and like kind of inside jokes with the reader, which I really appreciated the humor, not just of the characters, but the narrator. Subtle, but super fun. You must have had a lot of fun writing that.
That's a new technique for me. And I got it from reading. I've recently become a devotee of the World War II novelist Alan Furst, F-U-R-S-T, who in my opinion is one of the finest writers living today. I think I've read all those books now twice, and he employs this. He has these great characters, set French resistance fighters, they're about to get caught by a Nazi, and then in their mind they're thinking some kind of an offhand comment about, the SS uniform, or, how much sausage does this guy eat, this and that. And for me, that just humanized the characters so much. And instead of taking me out of the drama, it got me much more into it.
Totally.
It got me much more into it. So I've started, I hope, writing this way. And it's an easy habit to get into, and you can't abuse it. Because once you start getting used to it, you can start making wisecracks every page. But you want to use this sparingly, right moment.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see where you'd want to throw it in all the time, which makes me wonder how much rewriting did you have to take some of that out? Did you have to pull back?
There's always, with these things, Elmore Leonard said, easy reading means hard writing. And that's the whole thing. When you're reading a book, it should just flow and make sense. Like, oh, of course that happened, that. But you don't know when you're writing it. You write it and you go, that definitely couldn't happen. You pages. So that's the process. That's why it takes a year or over a year to write each book, because they don't often flow. But when you're reading it at the end, they should flow.
Absolutely. And it does. It really does. I appreciated it very much. And as a writer myself, I just kept thinking about you writing this book and wanting to ask you questions, but not so much that it took me out of the story, for sure. Like the pacing, I love the short sentences. There's a lot of power in 2 and 3 word sentences that just get the reader right in, so that was really well done. And I appreciated it very much. I also was really interested in how much you know about fashion, women's clothing, men's clothing. Like you brought in these details of these characters of what they were wearing, which said a lot about their personalities. So I wondered to myself, did Christopher work at Nordstrom, or what kind of research did you do?
Why. Very sharp eye, Jennifer. Thank you. Actually, it was my girlfriend that told me that the Christian Louboutin have the fire engine red soles, which I guess everyone knows if you buy those shoes.
I loved that. Yeah.
But before I became a writer, I was an investment banker, and I worked in mergers and acquisitions with the Union Bank of Switzerland in Zurich. In my space, which is what they mean the area you're working in, part of it was high fashion. And when I was 29, my first ride on a private jet was with the head of Louis Vuitton, the second head. His name was
No way.
Jet, flying from Paris to Monte Carlo to buy a jewelry company, a high-end jewelry company.
Wow.
So I pretty much thought I was the cat's meow. But ever since, and I worked with Claude Montana, with Canali, with Valentino. So I got to know these kind of just by having to know them. And it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
It just stuck with me. So I'm not really buying Armani suits anymore, but I do know what they look like and how to recognize them.
And certainly how to describe them, which was awesome. Very cool. That's funny. Isn't it great how like all these things you've done in your life come into the novel as if like everything happened for a reason for you as a novelist? I mean, I see so much I know you grew up in Tokyo. I know you're half Swiss. So, and you do speak several languages, right? You speak 3 at least.
Well, I speak French, German, and English, so.
Okay. That's what I thought. There you go. Yeah, exactly. 3.
Like the European sake, like my dad.
Exactly. So your love of cars too. I mean, I love Simon's, his actual job, if you will. He restores Ferraris and, really expensive automobiles, really expensive, which, it gives him this ability to travel and do really cool stuff. But what about you? Like, how did you learn about expensive cars?
This is Jennifer, you're hitting the nail on the head. I try to incorporate a lot of my life experience into the books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dickens is the first one that sets the example. All his books are based on his life. David Copperfield is his life.
Right.
I've read almost all his books, and I love how he incorporates real world into the story, hopefully kind of seamlessly, just because you give each character a certain level of expertise, but you're drawing kind of on your own minimal expertise, kind of a jack of all trades. But the Ferrari thing's a good story because it stemmed from someone I met. So I was just starting the Simon Risk book, and I had this idea, what should he be doing? And a lady next door to my office, a fellow Swiss, I'm a Swiss citizen too, her husband restores Ferraris. And we were talking once, I said, Gary restores Ferraris. I said, what kind of business is that? She goes, well, I'll tell you what kind of business it is. We just bought a Gulfstream 3 jet. I said, that sounds like a hell of a business.
You're like, I want that.
I went and spent time. It is shops called Top Gun Motors in San Diego. Gary Bobolek, he's one of the top Ferrari restorers and experts in the world. I would say top 5. And he gave me a tour of his shop and how they're restoring. He taught me how they do it. 2 to 3 years a car, 400,000 to $1 million to restore them. And it's a labor of love. These people, these cars are not even cars. They're like individuals, I think if you treated our spouses and our siblings and our loved ones as well as they treat these cars, the world would be a better place.
Oh,
The other thing I learned was, boy, did I make a mistake putting $1 in the stock market. I should have been buying Ferraris from 1995 because, as talked about in the book, these cars have gone up so astronomically in value.
Yeah.
In my first book, The Take, there's a Ferrari being sold for $25 million. And I thought, how is that possible? In my new book, which is called Once a Thief, the book opens up with in Pebble Beach, where Simon has just sold a Ferrari for 100 million. Okay, and
Book
that's
4?
also it's all based on truth from this article I'm reading. So it's like, buy Ferraris.
Yeah. Are you talking about, did you just talk about book 4?
Book 4, Once a Thief.
Oh, okay. That was going to be one of my questions is what do we have next coming from Simon?
Book 4 is really, it's kind of a balancing act for me. I don't want to give too much away, but
No, don't give too much away.
Once a thief, always a thief.
There you go.
This one, Simon does not yield to his better angels. He's coming off of the palace where it's been very harrowing for him. There's a lot of, bombs and go off at the end of the book and people get killed. And he's kind of has PTSD from it. And it's making him harken back to his younger days saying, I don't know if I'm really cut out for this being the good guy. And then the opportunity presents itself for him to just shed his, the angel's wings and really go back, and use his skills to be a very, very bad person. And it's really fun to write.
This is going to be a good book. I'm excited. Well, actually, I wanted to mention, there's this one scene where someone said, you're a glorified mechanic. And Simon's like, oh, I like that. I think I'll put that on my business card. I love that.
He doesn't take himself too seriously, that's for sure.
No, he doesn't. Like, he's kind of humble in a way, and he doesn't take the glory either. You don't give all the glory to Simon. In fact, you give some of the glory to these female cohorts in the book, which I appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome. In fact, I am one of the characters in this book, Dani Pine.
Oh, I love her. She's my favorite.
The Mossad agent. I'm glad you're saying that because I'm starting a new series with her next.
So she totally deserves a series.
Yeah, that's going to be much more kind of my old school. It's very hardcore political intrigue. She's a former spy. They bring her back in the first Dani Pine book, and they send her into Iran to rescue one of her former spies who she's been running. But she is hardcore. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Israel when I was in M&A doing it in banks, and I had a real appreciation for the people there and an affinity with them. And I feel I'm not Jewish, but I felt a lot of that. I felt a lot of their struggle and a lot of what it's like to be in a country where you're surrounded by people that don't recognize your existence and really want to destroy you. And so having been there, also a fan of Daniel Silva's books, Gabriel Alone, or Alon. I just love those books. In Dan Silva, like me, he uses all his knowledge. He was a CNN reporter. He knows a lot about the Vatican. His new book, The Order, I highly recommend it.
Awesome.
It's absolutely fascinating religious history, very much Dan Brown. So if you like any of the Dan Brown books, I know there's thousands that do, you get The Order by Daniel Silva. It's fantastic.
Awesome. Good recommendation. Yeah. Dani, I didn't want to talk about her because I didn't want to give anything away, but we are talking about her. So, her character is just fantastic. And in the beginning, I'm like, is she good or is she bad? I wasn't sure because, you paint her in such a way that, I knew she was strong, she was fierce, but I wasn't quite sure which side she landed on. So I was glad to see.
Sure. Look what business she's in. She's in the business of developing surveillance software. This is all based on a real company called SON Technologies. Actually it's called NSO, I think, and I called it SON in the book. Anyhow,
smart.
It makes this cutting edge software, which is used by intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies around the world to infiltrate and take control, to own, in the parlance, other people's phones. And this is how we know where a lot of the ISIS fighters are, how we track down, I'm not sure bin Laden, that's already too far ago, but it's just so advanced that if you by accident download this malware into your phone, as said in the book, they can read every text message, get into your bank accounts, look at all your pictures, and follow you and look at you in real time. So this exists, and I don't even know what the next iteration is. I'm sure it's more sophisticated. But so when you control this technology, just think about the power you could have over people. Wouldn't it be fun if I put this in my friend's phone? So Dani is always, she has this power. And they set up this company for good, and yet, as the book shows right from the beginning, someone has manipulated and is using it for evil purposes.
Yeah.
So yeah, she, just by virtue of running this company, she's always asked this question of, how am I going to employ these resources? To what end?
I love the themes of good and evil that run throughout the book, not just with Simon or Dani, but really all of our characters kind of struggle with the good and evil. Even like our worst character, the bad guy in the book thinks that he's doing this for good. Like in his mind, he's a purist. So, I wonder, did you intentionally weave this good and evil, or just did it kind of just happen as you were writing the characters?
I think all of us have good and evil. Usually the most fun character to write in a book is the bad guy, because they could be all bad. And
Right.
You can't succumb to the temptation of making these people cartoonish, because remember, bad people actually think they're good.
Exactly.
Hitler,
Yeah.
Hitler thought he was good.
Right.
I mean, to take an extreme example. But in a lesser case, the characters in this book, they think they're willing to inflict some damage, some evil on the world to provoke this greater good. And I think that's something all of us fight inside of us on a daily basis.
Yeah. The quintessential bad guy. I love it. I want to change the subject a little bit and talk about your rules. I was reading on your website that there are 3 rules to writing. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read them.
Oh, please, go ahead.
To be a successful novelist, the first one is give yourself a chance to success. I love that. The second one is just write. Super simple, right? You can't be a novelist if you don't just write. And then the third one is be humble. And I really appreciated that, because I felt when I was reading your book that you weren't a douchebag, if you will. Now, I apologize for using this word on Facebook, everyone. But a lot of times when I read books of this ilk, a lot of times you get the sense that the writer is kind of an egoist, but I never got that. Our characters had just the right amount of humility. And so when I saw that on your website, I was really intrigued. So talk to us about this idea that you think, and do you think Simon is humble?
Oh, yes. I mean, let me tell you that is, all those rules are they're hard earned. Okay. Those are hard earned rules. My agent, Richard Pine, is the one that said, Chris, just write. Because I'll be writers have a tendency to call and to kvetch and say, I can't figure this out. And he goes, Chris, just write. The magic happens when you put pen to paper. And the thing about writing novels is you can always edit. You can always revise.
Yeah.
You can't revise something you haven't written yet. Okay. So don't be afraid to make that mistake, but be willing to work hard enough to go back and fix it. Okay.
Yeah.
The be humble rule I got from when I was writing my first novel, Number to Count. Here I sat down. I'd never written a short story. I'd never taken an English class in college. And I said, I can be a writer. I'm going to be a novelist. And I only wanted to be a bestseller. I didn't want to be struggling. I could go back to being a banker. Okay. There was plenty of room for me there. So I had these very firm goals in mind, but I also knew my limitations. Okay. And I noticed when I go to writers' conference, and not to be rude, but a lot of people don't know their limitations. They just fall in love with whatever they wrote because they wrote it.
Yeah.
I often say that being a writer is like being more like a musician, like a good saxophone player. You're playing the saxophone, and you have to tell yourself if it sounds good or not, right? And so you have to be able to hear that. And I wrote my first draft for Number to Count. I remember that was my first book in 1998, came out. And I showed it to a friend who lived near me, a girl, Carla Cuban, her name is, fantastic writer in her own right. She was getting her master's degree at the University of Texas in English literature. And she read it. She was so kind. She read it. She goes, Chris, she goes, you're a pretty good writer. He goes, but this book makes no sense. This is like crazy. And I said, well, why? She goes, well, just, you got to just tell the story straight and use a straightforward chronology. And, I was enamored of John le Carre and Frederick Forsyth, guys that were some of the finest thriller writers, and thought I could just copy them on the first go round. It's like, no. And I listened to her advice. I said, Jesus, she's right. This is horrible.
Which is
I sat
uncommon.
down and knuckled down. Yeah.
And you sat down. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I just knuckled down for 4 months and started rewriting it. And, Jennifer, the first rule of writing is rewriting. Anybody can write a book, but only an author can rewrite a book, because that is where the rubber hits the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is, leads me to my next question. How long does it take you to write a book? First draft.
It depends. I'm getting much faster. It's funny, in my senescence, my brain is like getting stronger.
Nice.
I was lucky. I got very successful early. I was really lucky. You know, Napoleon always said, "I want my generals lucky, not smart." So I got lucky, and then I started taking. I took too much time. I took 2 years for a book. You know, a year, 2 years, back and forth. And only recently I started really knuckling down and enjoying the process more and really writing one book a year. You know,
Nice.
remember John Grisham when he started saying, "I knew when I got in, it's a one book a year game." You know,
That's right.
and he was able to do it from the beginning. He writes 2 books a year now. David Baldacci, 2 books a year. So I'm jumping in. I'm jumping into that game. I'm going to do 2 books a year. I can do it. I know how to do it now. I know how to divvy up the research and the writing, and you know, I have a lot of hours during the day when my kids. I used to be a very hands-on father and would take the kids to school and pick them up. I don't have that responsibility anymore. So, you know, I miss that. I love being a dad, but I'm going to use my time wisely and hopefully write stories that people love reading.
Awesome. Well, you're doing a great job and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I have one more, this is more of a request actually. I'd like you to update the events on your website because I want my name to be on your website.
I will do that. I will do that today.
This has been incredible. I appreciate you sharing your love of writing and, you know, bringing Simon Risk into the world. It's a great book, people. The Palace, it's available now. Warwick's has copies. I recommend highly that you buy this from Warwick's.
My favorite bookstore.
Thank you. Yeah, our favorite bookstore for sure. Christopher, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Okay, we've got some comments here from Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere for a few more minutes. We got a few more minutes before we get out into the sunshine, or we go watch more things for book lovers on the Festival of Books. So we've got Fran's on here saying she's so glad that she's able to hear Christopher with Jeniffer. Great news about the series. So she's very excited about that, which that's really exciting that there's a series coming.
It is.
She wants to know when your next book. So I think you answered her question though, in that you're writing a book a year. So your next book will be out the same time next year, or
August, first week of August, 2021. Awesome. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And then after that, and then in March of 2022 will be the first Dani Pine book. No title yet.
Excellent. And then I think there was a comment from Sarah up here. Sarah says hi to you. Sarah said hi to you and Jeniffer. So there's so we had some good watchers. So yeah, this was a great conversation, and I love hearing all of the different areas and the countries and everything. It was really, really a good conversation, really fun. Chris, we can't wait until it's a normal time. So hopefully next August, we will be at the store having this event. But if not, we'll still come back here.
That will happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Jeniffer, for people who are interested, let people know how to get in touch with you, see what kind of platforms do you like to communicate with the fans out there?
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, this is going to be on our podcast, The Premise. It's the official podcast of the San Diego Writers Festival. You can check that out at sandiegowritersfestival.com, or you can go to thepremisepod.com. I am on Twitter, and you can find me at jenniferthompson.com or at my company, which is Monkey C Media.
Excellent. And they can find all your Twitter handles from there, I'm assuming.
They're all on the website, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Christopher, how about you? How do people find you? Any last words for everybody out there, and then how do they find you?
I'm at www.christopherreich.com. Pretty original. And
Never that way.
I'm on Instagram at Christopher Reich Author. Facebook, I think the Christopher Reich Author page. So that's probably more than you need to know about me.
Excellent.
And C. Reich Author. He's also on Twitter at C. Reich Author.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you for spending Independent Bookstore Day with us. This was really fun. For everybody out there, like I said, there's lots more to watch today. If you are a book enthusiast, go to our website. I put the link to buy Christopher's book on there. Support independent bookstores. go and see the San Diego Festival of Books, where Jeniffer has a panel, Christopher has a panel, so there's lots more to see today. You can watch that at your leisure too. So with that, I'm going to take us off of Facebook Live. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for the great questions.
Oh my gosh, that was wonderful, Christopher. I really appreciated it.
Hope to see you sometime in the real world.